Given the seemingly endless stretch of chilly, rainy weather we've been having here in Northern California lately, it's kind of hard to believe we could be having our first 90-degree days in a little over a month. Such conditions aren't actually unheard of in April around here. With the long, hot, and dry days of the Sacramento Valley summer come a number of gardening challenges, one of which is the stress and damage extreme heat and unrelenting sunshine can do to commonly grown garden crops. Now, most of the plants we typically want to eat begin to struggle when long stretches of 90-degree days or hotter set in. So, problems that can occur include spontaneous flower and fruit drop, bolting, pollination problems, sun scald, and if you're growing tomatoes, that stress can contribute to blossom end rot. So, today I'm going to go over my favorite heat loving crops and varieties of those crops that tend to thrive as the temperature rises. Traditional green beans, like these here, have an ideal temperature range of about 65 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, here in the Sacramento Valley, we're typically done with such mild conditions by the end of May. Long stretches of much hotter temperatures, say 90s and above, can cause bean plants to drop blossoms, which will, of course, result in lower yields in production. So, as an alternative to classic green beans, we've taken to growing asparagus beans, also commonly known as yard-long beans. Now, technically a type of cowpea, asparagus beans thrive over long, hot summers with vines often reaching 8 or more feet in length. Now, while they do take longer to start producing fruit than standard green beans, once they do begin, yields are typically abundant and unrelenting. In terms of flavor, yardlongs are similar enough to regular green beans that they are a sufficient culinary replacement. Some people have said that they have a flavor somewhat similar to asparagus, hence their name, but this actually hasn't been my experience. The plants seen here really aren't the best example of what the variety can do, but this is not the fault of the variety, it's all me. Last year, I put these in just the worst possible spot in my backyard, in the most shaded, low light part of my plot. And this is a plant that really thrives in full direct sunlight. So these underperformed and wound up looking pretty shabby, but this was all my fault. So don't let what these look like stop you from giving this great legume a try. Well, technically a species of muskmelon, Armenian cucumbers, like this guy here, are identical in flavor to the typical cucumber varieties found in grocery stores, though I've found the flesh does tend to be a little bit drier. While true cucumbers are actually at home in hot temps up to 95 degrees, they will begin to struggle during triple-digit days, while Armenian cucumbers often will not. So lots of space or large trellises are essential when growing these, as the vines can easily exceed 15 feet in length. They're definitely space hogs if you're not careful. The plants will typically begin producing fruit 70 or so days after germination, and fruits are really best harvested between 10 and 16 inches in length. If you let them go too long, they will get huge and not so great to eat. You'll come out one day and find you have pale green baseball bats effectively hanging from your vines. Now, don't get me wrong, I love traditional cucumbers, especially my Boston pickling cukes, but these are consistently outproduced in our garden by Armenian cukes every summer. Root vegetables can be tricky or impossible to grow over the Sacramento summer. Potatoes, carrots, beets, and turnips are all cool season crops that tend to quickly bolt or just stop producing as temps shoot upward. That's why I've been working on getting better at growing sweet potato. As they're a tropical plant, high heat is no problem for sweet potatoes, though they are reportedly more attuned to hot and humid climates than the parched and scorched summers we tend to get here. That said, I did okay last season starting sweet potatoes from grocery store stock and ultimately harvesting about 35 pounds from 18 square feet of bed space. Starting sweet potatoes is easy, but getting large roots can be tricky as nitrogen-rich soil tends to lead to lush green leaves and undersized roots. If this occurs, the silver lining is sweet potato greens are both edible and delicious. Sweet potato roots do take an excruciatingly long time to reach a desirable size, so this crop is really only a good choice for climates that allow at least 120 days of warm weather. I find winter squash to be one of the most gratifying veggies to grow. There's just something magical about watching a tiny green bulb grow over the course of a summer into a fat orange globe. As with everything else, though, high sustained heat can stress squash plants into flower drop and low yield. I've found that machada varieties, which are all basically butternut squash in different configurations, tend to endure extreme heat much better than the Maxima or Peppo varieties. That said, I have had moderate success growing such Maxima varieties as Golden Nugget and Sweetmeat. A strategy I like to take for growing more heat-sensitive varieties of winter squash is to start them indoors a week or two before the last frost, transplanting them into the garden as soon as all frost danger has passed. This head start can give the plants more time to set fruit before the worst of the hot weather arrives. I posted a video last summer profiling my favorite heat-loving tomato varieties, so to avoid too much redundancy, I'll keep this segment brief. Um, so I've yet to encounter a cherry tomato variety that doesn't produce well in the heat. Sun Gold and Black Cherry are two of our favorites, but again, so far it hasn't really seemed to matter. Now, for slicing tomatoes, we have had great success with Cherokee Purple, though I have heard from gardeners in hot, humid climates as opposed to our hot, dry climate who have had poor to mediocre results from the variety, experiencing a number of fungal issues with it. Now, when it comes to sauce tomatoes, it's possible I may never grow anything again other than Rio Grande. Last year, this determinate heirloom variety averaged 8 pounds per plant and was our only sauce tomato variety that was completely unaffected by blossom end rot. Also making a point of it to try at least one new, allegedly heat-tolerant tomato variety every year. So this season, I'm giving these heirloom Virginia sweet slicing tomatoes a try. Something I've come to accept about life in a place with a convection oven-like climate 6 months out of the year is some veggies just aren't going to thrive or even survive over the summer. Luckily, many heat-sensitive veggies can be grown over the winter here in Sacramento. Beets, carrots, broccoli, spinach, and lettuce are all frost tolerant enough to survive the mild winters we tend to get here. These plants do take longer to produce over winter on account of the short days and lower light levels, but a winter garden of greens and brassicas can provide a steady supply of fresh produce through the coldest and darkest months of the year. Thanks to everyone who watched this far. Look for an upcoming series of videos that covers the cultivation and care of some or all of the above crops from seed to harvest. So if that's something you think you might be interested in, just keep an eye on my channel. And I hope everybody comes back.